Oh, that's better. You're moving now. So you're going to introduce, are you going to kick things off, Paul?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. We're just going to wait another 20 seconds or so as people are absolutely pouring in at this very second. We'll be with you in about 20 seconds. We'll start the webinar.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep. All good. Okay, Andy, over to you.
Okay, it's 1 minute past 10, so it's time to start. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this airline webinar hosted by the Nordic Tourism Collective and our partners ETOA. We'd just like to thank everyone for joining this morning. Paul, maybe you want to introduce but before we do that, let's just make a start and let's explain what we're doing here. This is the first webinar we're going to have on the recovery. We're beginning to see some signs of recovery now, and it's time to talk to the various industry sectors and see what their interpretation of the recovery is, what it looks like, perhaps how it's going to progress and then develop over the next few months. So the airlines are the most crucial part of the whole industry. And really, it's the success of the airlines and how the airlines are developing the routes, how the airlines are recovering, which is really fundamental to the success and the recovery of our entire industry. So we're very pleased here to have some very distinguished guests with us. Paul, who's with us today?
Yes, just to add, my name's Paul Wagner from the Nordic Tourism Collective. Delighted to have you all with us this morning. This will also be recorded for those that would like to listen to a recording or send it to colleagues afterwards. And one other note, if you have any questions, there is a questions bar in the tool on your right. So just put in your question if there's anything for the panelists over the coming hour or so. Right, first of all, we've got a fabulous panel with us today. And first of all, I'd like to introduce to you Nico Eck from SAS, Scandinavian Airlines. Good morning, Nico. Good morning, Nico. Seems to be a technical hitch on the first one. Nico, can you hear us? While we're getting Nico, let's introduce you to Mikko Turtiainen from Finnair. Good morning, Mikko.
Hello, good morning. Great to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you, Mikko. And Heiko Brix from Eurowings. Delighted to have you with us. Good morning, Heiko.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Hi.
Great to have you. And hopefully we're good with Nico's sound, and we'll be sorting that out as I think Nico's back. Nico, you're with us now, yeah? Great. Okay, before we go into the panel discussion, we're delighted to have with us today Nicholas Fu from Sojourn, our data and trends partner from Sojourn. Nicholas is going to give us a short presentation on the data trends and demand of the airline industry coming back over the coming 6 months to a year. Nicholas, good morning and warm welcome to you too.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Great to join this webinar today.
Fabulous, thank you, Nicholas. Right, now we're going to show Nicholas's presentation. So if we could just have that up on the screen, please. If we could have Nicholas' presentation. If we could just go back to the very first slide. Okay.
Nope.
Nicholas, over.
Great. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Nicholas Fu. I'm a senior data analyst here at Sojourn, where Sojourn is a leading digital marketing platform built for the travel marketers. Powered by machine learning and traveler intent data, Sojourn provides multi-channel marketing solutions to drive direct demand. We work with 10,000 hotels, attractions, tourism boards, and traveler marketers who rely on us annually to engage and convert travelers from around the world. So in today's presentation, I'll be going through basically what travel to the Nordics is looking like. So to start off, I'll be looking at travel trends from 2019 to 2021, moving on to key specific feeder markets such as the United States and Germany. Then moving forward, I'll be looking at what travel will look like for the remainder of 2021, moving into 2022, before finally touching on changes in traveler behavior in the form of leisure versus travel, lead time, and stay duration. So can we have the next slide, please? Right, so to start off with how travel trends have changed from 2019 to 2021. This graph displays flight booking changes over time from January to December, from the years 2019 to 2021. If we pay specific focus to the 2020 line, which is the light blue line on this graph, we can see when COVID hit in the first quarter of 2020, flight ticket bookings took a sharp dip whereby it dropped by almost 90% and remained low for the remainder of 2020. However, moving into 2021, if we look at the dark blue line on this line graph, we can see that flight ticket bookings have persistently made an upward movement over time. And as of the middle of September this year, flight ticket bookings are up by 184% to what they were at the start of the year, and are merely 33% below what they were for the same time period in 2019. Now, the success behind this remarkable market recovery is likely to be attributed to the fact that most of the Nordic countries have been very successful in controlling the pandemic within their borders. Almost all local restrictions have been removed from the daily lives within the Nordics. This, combined with the high vaccine uptake within their local population, is likely to create a positive perception that the Nordics is safe to travel to, and the fact that it's now open to vaccinated travelers, particularly from Europe and most destinations from abroad, is likely to further promote recovery towards 2019 levels. Can we have the next slide, please? So looking at this graph, this now going specifically into two feeder markets, one being Germany and the other being the United States. The graph similarly shows changes in flight ticket bookings over time for 2019 to 2021. So if we look at the dark blue line for both Germany and the United States, we can see that over time, flight ticket bookings have been on an upward trajectory. Looking first at Germany, this uptick kind of corresponded roughly around the months of March and April, which is when Germany started to basically step up on its vaccine inoculation for the general population. This in turn has translated to the ability for more fully vaccinated travelers to be able to travel abroad. The fact now that Germany, similar to other European countries, are able to travel to the Nordics is very encouraging, and we're quite likely to see that flight ticket bookings are going to approach what they were in 2019. If we look for the United States, particularly at the second quarter of 2021, there's been a sharp uptick in terms of flight booking recovery, and particularly for the month of June, where flight ticket bookings were merely 8% to what they were in 2019, which is very encouraging to see. However, for the remainder of moving into the third quarter of 2021, there's been a slight, somewhat downward movement of flight ticket bookings, and this is more to do with the United States pandemic situation in terms of being hit by the Delta variant and the third wave. At present, only countries such as Denmark are open to for fully vaccinated travels from the United States. But the fact that the United States is one of the major feeding markets, and even when borders are not open to them, there's such strong demand for them. When borders do open to travelers from the United States, we're likely to see a strong recovery to what we saw in the second quarter of 2021. Next slide, please. So moving forward into what travel interest is like for the remainder months of 2021, moving into 2022. This bar graphs represent flight searches for future departure dates. And what we can clearly see from here, from these four representative countries, is the fact that most travel is going to take place within the immediate months of 2021, being the months of October, November, and December, with the month of December here being highlighted to indicate that there's already a Christmas bump in travel that we're seeing from our data partners. What's also interesting to see is that for more distant feeder markets such as Japan, Singapore, and the United States, there is already interest to travel into for months into 2022, particularly within the summer months, as we can see in the secondary peak for the United States for the months of June until August. So I want to actually go a little bit closer and talk about Singapore, which we can see in the next slide. So next slide, please. So this is a similar graph to what I showed before, but now looking at flight ticket bookings. What's really interesting to see here is that flight ticket bookings for the month of December is much higher for what it was for the month of October. Singapore recently has opened up travel for its citizens to travel abroad to 10 destinations without the need to quarantine upon coming back. And one of these countries is a Nordic country, Denmark. So the fact that now pent-up demand for Singapore, the fact that Singapore was closed off to the rest of the world for the entire pandemic period, and now that it's opened up again, this expression in the intent to travel is so strong and it's very positive to see. The fact that this such strong pent-up demand actually caused travel websites such as Singapore Airlines to crash on the day of the government's announcement of the fact that citizens can now consider traveling abroad. Next slide, please. Now, I'll be talking about changes in terms of travel behavior, beginning with leisure versus business travel. So the top bar graph above represents flight ticket bookings in terms of the portion of travelers traveling for leisure travel, represented by the yellow bar, versus business travel represented by the blue bar. As is quite evident from the graph, the portion of travelers traveling for leisure travel has increased over the pandemic period, indicating a shift that most people are traveling for leisure purposes. But if we look at the second graph below, for the months of 2021, we can see somewhat of a slow but persistent recovery of travelers wanting to travel to the Nordics for business travel, indicating that perhaps business travel is starting to come back to the Nordics. Next slide, please. Moving on to stay duration, this graph represents flight ticket bookings in the form of stay durations for the year 2019 to 2021, with the yellow bar representing short stay duration, 0 to 3 days, medium stay duration in terms of 4 to 14 days, and long stay duration in the black bar. What is clear here again is that there's a shift in the patterns of travelers in the form of no longer preferring shorter travels, but rather medium to long travels, as can be seen by the growth in the bars of the purple and black bar. Reasons for this are likely to be attributed to the fact that during the pandemic, people were unable to travel, and when the opportunity does present itself, people are more likely to take longer stay durations, supplemented by the fact that they have accumulations of holidays that they were not able to take before. So let's move on finally to the last slide, which is on changes in lead time. So this graph shows the changes in average lead time for the years 2019 to 2021 for the months of January to September. What I want to point out here very clearly is that we look at these at two specific years, 2020 in the form of the light blue and 2021 in terms of the dark blue. Their patterns are very similar to one another and completely different to the normal behavior we would see in 2019. This is because during periods where there is a peak in the outbreak, either in the origin country or even the destination country, travelers are not willing to travel, rather postponing travel for future dates, which translates to longer average lead time. However, when things start to settle down and travel is now possible, travelers are more likely to make immediate impulsive travel decisions to travel in the immediate future, which in turn translates to shorter average lead time. This behavior is also likely to be attributed to the fact that restriction measures entering into countries and announcements from governments tend to be on a very short rotation period. What I want to point out finally is that if we look at the end of the blue line graph, we can see that average lead time is starting to move back towards what it was in 2019. And this could be a positive sign that perhaps some form of normality in terms of lead time behavior is starting to return to the travel industry. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Nicholas, thank you very much. That's quite a lot to take in there, and I think I mean, the one takeaway from all that is it's very encouraging. All the graphs seem to be going in the right direction, and they're all going that way rather than that way. So I think that's fantastic, Nicholas. So thank you very much. So if you hang on, Nicholas, because I'm sure there'll be a few questions for you later on, but I think that's really encouraging. I mean, as an airline person, or as a non-airline person, it's very difficult to sort of understand the sort of chicken and egg nature of all this. And Mika, I'm going to ask you a question which is going to be impossible for you to answer, but I'll ask you anyway. It seems to me as a non-airline person, as an airline, you have to wait for customer demand to be there in order to think about putting a route on. And yet the demand is driven to a large extent by the restrictions and the fact that the routes exist or don't exist in the first place. It's very chicken and egg. So I mean, we've seen pent-up demand, we've seen opening restrictions. How, you know, what's your feeling on that, and how do the airlines cope with this sort of sudden opening of certain destinations, and how do you cope with that sort of very sort of difficult situation?
Yeah, thank you. If I jump in, I mean, this is an excellent question, and you're going right into the details of what our planning and network team is doing. You know, it's been the most difficult time ever to really try and, you know, think out what your network is. But we're actually right now in a time where for the first time we really do see the opportunity to travel, where we do see, you know, pretty much Europe being open if you're fully vaccinated. We see signs of the US opening up on the 8th. We see, you know, positive signals from Thailand in regards to travel from November onwards, still with documentation. But we do see the world opening, and you know, us as an airline, we have really built up our ramp up plans in regards to the network over this winter season, where we kind of started over the summer, where we started seeing those first signals. But we have been a little bit, you know, in advance, I guess is the word that I would say, that we are, you know, increasing our capacity, where we, by the end of winter season, we'll be in that 65% range of what we had in 2019. So this winter is definitely the time where we are building up capacity, and part of it is, you know, it's you know, forecasting and how demand comes in. You're really kind of, you know, looking at daily intakes. I think that's been one of the keys for us, that when do you see intakes coming in and for what areas, and these kind of, then you put these against, is that capacity that you have in the market, is it the correct one? And we've been, throughout the whole COVID process, we've been one where we've really tried to figure out what that capacity is. We've tried to stay away from canceling flights and kind of, you know, very short-term making network adjustments. Our view has been, you know, to put the capacity in that we truly see fits the environment in regards to restrictions and so on, and do this in a 6 month or so kind of period. So the consumer can also be confident in what we have in the market and not be afraid of cancellations and so on. But right now we are living that first real time when that addition of capacity is actually also being seen, where capacity and demand are kind of going hand in hand, and you're not just having capacity out there where you're not getting demand. So this is the, you know, it's a great time. I've talked about the light at the end of the tunnel, and now we're truly being at that light where the capacity and the demand are going more hand in hand, and this is really great. There are still countries out there, especially long haul markets, that we are anticipating to open up during the winter. But a kind of a short answer to a very difficult question on how do you do capacity, but it's a lot of, you know, daily numbers crunching, looking at intakes, really understanding what those developing restrictions are globally, and then trying to fit that network and the best part of your network towards that possible demand.
Excellent. Nico, you with us? Thank you, Nico. Nico, are you with us now? You're back with us? You've technical issues been fixed?
Yeah, I'm here, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Great to have you back. Sorry about that, Nico. Nico, I don't know how much of that you missed or you heard, but basically I was sort of setting the picture that it's a real sort of chicken and egg situation with airline capacity and demand, and Nico gave me his overview of Finnair's thinking there. I mean, SAS have been lucky enough, I suppose, if that's the right word, to maintain a route network domestically around Scandinavia, around the Nordics, throughout the whole. You've been flying throughout, but opening up new routes and looking at new capacities, that's a daily process, and look at where the business should be moving forward, Nico.
Yeah, I heard Mikko very well, and to very large extent I can't agree anymore. And it's really, we have been fortunate in that sense that we are very strongly present in the short haul market and within the Scandinavian domestic markets. And I think it looks like the demand is coming back in the opposite order than it actually went away. So we see very, very healthy demand in, for example, Norwegian domestic, Swedish domestic markets, and within the Scandinavian countries. But I share it completely with Mikko that now it's really the first time during the whole pandemic that we truly see that there is a demand also internationally, and it's not only about hoping for the best and having capacity out there and believing it's going to come back. Now it is back. We can see that it's improving week by week, day by day, and it's super encouraging for an airline to actually feel like an airline again. And it's and also from our point of view, I mean, the good thing is that there's a lot of data out there. I know that there was a lot of data shared already about the demand, but we have a lot of data and we are able to monitor the demand on hourly or daily basis, and we do react. And I would just actually add that, well, it is, we always speak about adding flights, adding capacity, but for us it's actually also a lot about reallocating, because it's not only growing everywhere in a constant pace. It's also understanding where the demand is coming and where it's fast growth and where it's slower growth, and to be able to quickly adjust, to take out from somewhere, to add it somewhere else where it actually makes a bit better profit. So it's really a big task, but it's at least it's an exciting challenge that we are heading into.
An exciting challenge indeed. Talking of exciting challenges, Heikko, you've identified Scandinavia as being obviously an area which you want to develop for Eurowings. You've recently put on a few new routes to Scandinavia. What's your thinking behind that? We've seen Scandinavia. Nicholas was very kind to share some information showing that the Nordics is one of the regions which is developing because of the vaccination and the ease of travel and the lowering of restrictions. Was that part of your thinking, or was there more to it than that, Heikko?
Yeah, thank you very much, Andy. Maybe first of all, I would also like to chime into the positive outlook that we of course share with Mikko and also with Nico here. It's, by the way, it's interesting, right? Mikko, Nico, Heikko. It sounds very Nordics as well, right? This triangle here. So from that perspective, what I experienced, I'm only in this role for 4 months now. I've been to Singapore actually in the last 5 years in Southeast Asia. And yeah, coming into Europe now is a great experience again. I'm happy to be back. And of course, I came into a very, very interesting period of time here in Europe where things are moving into the right direction. And we saw with the two operators, before I come to Scandinavia, maybe with the two operators, a very, very close collaboration, of course, and a very wild short-term adjustment of routing. So the network planners were very much in focus when you might remember or recall the Portugal issue with the incidents, with the high risk announcement, and then we actually saw a massive disruption. We took out the aircrafts and put them to, for example, Greece and to Turkey, and from there we also saw some volatility there that we shifted again, and that was all done jointly with the two operators, where we of course get the first-hand information on what's happening in the market to then jointly decide with commitments that are behind this whole situation. So again, I think we went through even strengthening the collaboration with the two operators in the last months, as we saw the flexibility on both sides brought up a great success. When we look at Palma, for example, it's incredible. I hope we can see that again in the next year, but it's not so likely. It's really like a boom. But also Greece, of course. And yeah, looking into and that's the short-term view more, and looking into the mid and long-term view, strategy of Eurowings, of course, is to further develop our growth story. And that is limited in a limited way only possible in Germany, and in a more obvious way possible in other areas in Europe. So the euro of Eurowings is filled more more broadly, obviously, by opening up another base in Prague, which is happening. We're having the event next week for the opening, and then the base for the summer season in Stockholm. And the reason why we went to Scandinavia, obviously, is the opportunities that we see there in terms of a value carrier coming in and adding additional value to the customers in Sweden, with business routes as well as leisure routes that we're offering here. The feedback from local tour operators is really strong, and a lot of demand and requests towards our new routes here. And so we're pretty confident, and similar to Czech Republics, where we're seeing a very nice development of the booking curve now, that we will also be hopefully adding value to the market of Sweden here. The Germans themselves as well, and that's why we already started from Düsseldorf and Stuttgart, as you know, with additional destinations to the Scandics already during the course of this year. They are very much focusing on the northern European destinations and looking into exploring this area more. I think from that side, from that perspective, we already gained some very positive insights into how interested Germans are to travel to Scandinavia. And now out of Scandinavia, of course, it's a different story, and the next level that we're approaching to really ramping up a base with 5 aircrafts. As you might be aware, and 20 destinations for summer 22. So the one is the short-term, adjustments together with the tour operators especially, and the other is the mid and long-term growth story that we're telling.
Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you very much. A comprehensive answer. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, just thinking actually, we're coming up to the winter season now, which for the Nordic region very much encompasses the Arctic region. And all 3 airlines we're delighted to see have been adding routes up into the north of Finland, Sweden, and Norway, which is super encouraging. I think there's a lot of confidence that this winter season will finally take off. If I can just broaden that scope a little bit, especially for our long haul colleagues listening today, is we can see that the US has picked up dramatically. We saw the results of what happened in Iceland in the summer when demand from the US to Iceland was incredible, and I think 50,000 passengers suddenly went there as restrictions opened up. How do our panelists feel about the long haul markets? I think a lot of people on this call are interested just to get a feeling is, when do you believe we'll be opening up a lot of the old routes and maybe some new routes to Asia? And are we going to be looking at kind of comfortable 2019, at least near 2019 levels for the US routes? Maybe I can start with you, Mikko.
Yeah, hey, thank you. Great question. And you really hit at the core of Finnair's strategy being about Asia. And we've been flying throughout the COVID. We've been flying Asia. We've been connecting Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, as much as China as you're able to, offer. We have Singapore on our list now again, as well as Thailand. So we are in Asia. When we look at next summer, our next summer capacity to for example, Japan, it'll be at that 2019 level. So we're going extremely heavy in a good sense, where we will be operating to Sapporo and starting up Haneda, as well as flying into Narita, so double daily into Tokyo, double daily Osaka. We'll be to do Nagoya, Fukuoka. So we'll have a very broad network into Asia. We'll be starting Busan also next spring. So opening up our second destination in Korea. China, I think, is a big question mark in regards to how the 5-1 policy develops and how China will open. USA is going to be stronger than ever. Right now, we are flying from Helsinki as well as from Stockholm, direct flights into New York, Miami, LA, and also Chicago out of Helsinki. So our long haul, which is our bread and butter and also kind of allows us to develop our European network, is very much at the kind of the core. If we look at markets opening up, I think the Japan vaccination rates are actually at a better rate and a broader coverage than we are here in Finland. So Japan has really taken steps, as well as Korea. I would, making guesses on how countries will open, I think it's almost impossible. But if you read our network, we are looking that there will be steps happening in regards to Asia over the next half year or so, and Finnair will be ready next summer in regards to Asian demand into Europe, and that's kind of, you know, what our guiding light is when we look at long hauls. US opening up right now, I think our network is very ready to take on demand between Europe and the US. So I would say that in many senses we are there, and we're very, in that sense, optimistic, because if we look at the Nordics and basically all of us in this, the Nordics is been kind of positioned as a very strong destination coming out of COVID, and probably I would say looking at the next 12 to 18 months, all of us operating into this area should be strong, because this area, the Nordics, it's already branded as a kind of a, you know, an area where there's room to roam, where it's more about the experience. It's about nature to a degree, with a very special Nordic urban kind of, you know, experience that you have. And I think this is something that resonates with many tourists at the moment, and will have a strong kind of hold in that free time leisure segment. So I'm, you know, looking at the next 12 months, I'm extremely excited about us developing our long hauls, be it Asia or the US, and through that being able to offer again our kind of core strategy in connecting Europe with Asia, and especially this Nordic area.
Super, thanks Mika. Really encouraging. I mean, I think everybody's waiting to see and waiting to feel when the kind of quotations and the bookings will start to come in from, especially from Asia. And I think the fact that Finnair is being very dynamic, very proactive on this, will allow the operators, when the time is right, vaccination-wise, to start the process and get the groups and FITs back as soon as possible from the region. So thanks very much, Mika. Great to hear. Nico, from your side, obviously European network is opening up very, very dramatically. How about the long haul side with SAS?
Yeah. Correct. It feels like it starts from short haul, but we are more than ready to ramp up on long haul as well, and we are doing that constantly now. Asia, it's a bit more tricky, I would say, if you compare with the US today, especially China. I think we all know the challenges with being able to fly. I mean, the demand is larger than the possibilities to fly, and of course we are doing what we can to change that. And the other Asian route that we operate, we are back as soon as the demand is there. So that's 100% sure. We have been actually lucky within the COVID period, if you may call it that. We have been able to renew the fleet. We have taken on new Airbus 350s. We have also started to take on narrow body long haul aircraft, the long range 321 Airbus. So there's a lot of ideas how to use this capacity. And on the US, where we are and have historically been very strong, out of 12 routes that we normally have operated, we are actually going to be back on 11 already before Christmas, and during the winter schedule we are going to be back on all routes, which is actually very, very good news. And then depending on the demand, then of course we add frequencies as much as possible. But just to keep in mind also from our angle, we need to ramp up in a profitable way, and that's really the key here. So just to push capacity out in the market is not necessarily good for anybody, but to do it in the right pace, to do it with the right aircraft types, and to do it with the right frequency numbers, I think that's really, really key. And we are working really hard 24/7 to make sure that we have that right capacity out there in the market.
Oh, that's great. I mean, again, encouraging signs, doing it in a sensible, balanced way, based on demand, based on the fleet, based on all the conditions that are so fundamental for developing the new routes. I was just going to ask Nicholas actually in Sojourn, because you've obviously seen a few figures from the time from Asia. With your crystal ball in your hand, which you probably haven't got one on there, One of the big questions in the Nordics and in Europe as a whole is, when do you believe we may start to see the Koreas, the Japans, the Taiwans, the Southeast Asia slowly coming back into Europe? And if you were to hazard a guess, would Q2 be a sensible one based on your data?
I think I would agree with you. Probably Q1 moving into Q2 2022. I think it's very much a matter of when basically vaccine rates in the population basically hit a particular level, and then governments are willing to open up their borders and have travel arrangements to more distant destinations such as Scandinavia. I think what you could see clearly from the data that we're presenting is that people in Asia are already interested in traveling, and they're already looking so far ahead in anticipation of borders are going to be open at some point in the future. So we're going to see a similar kind of bounce like what we saw in Singapore. The fact that once it opens up, websites may come coming down because there's just so much pent-up demand.
Yeah, that's music to, I think, everybody's ears that's listening to this call. Actually, I think that's what very much everyone's waiting for. We've seen the Singapore example, we've seen the US example. Let's hope that the other countries are following very soon. Andy, over to you for the next question.
But just a couple of practical questions, really. I know we've got an awful lot of people on this webinar, and I know a lot of people are really sort of thinking. I'd just like to know very briefly, I think, from the airlines with us today about the practicalities of some of the COVID restrictions which are in place, and the COVID restrictions are going to be hanging around, and what we're seeing, sort of the tests at the airports. We're seeing masks on the planes. We're seeing the delivery of meals on board, and everything has had to have changed because of the whole COVID situation. I mean, Heiko, I'll start with you. So how do you see this developing? This is obviously something that you had to impose. The airlines had to take these precautions, and had to do it because that's what we did. Do you see this? Is any of that you think will continue for the longer term, or are you going to just go back to the normal as soon as it's possible to do so?
Well, of course, as everybody knows, we are very dependent on the rules and regulations that the authorities are imposing here. And as you all know, and I think this is not nothing that we can sweet talk here. At the beginning, it was pretty chaotic, right? At the airports, when all the airport staff really needed to check the documents, they had to go into the back office to double check with the supervisor whether this is now really correct, yes, no, etc. So from that perspective, the only way forward, of course, is digitalization, which we're also supporting here with initiatives from the ground operations team. But of course, here we also did a big step with the vaccination pass that is now digitally available, and is almost normal for us when we're traveling to just show on the app what is needed. So digitalization is key, and we'll be keeping on developing the processes here. I think what is going to maintain for a long time definitely is the need for safe and healthy travel experience. And here initiatives that Eurowings is pushing forward, and like the free middle seat that we're offering from 10 euros already as the first entry level of pricing is definitely something that will be lasting for longer, and we see a strong demand here as well. So from that perspective, to really feel more air around yourself to breathe, I think this is something that will not fade away soon. So in my opinion, also the ultra low cost carrier is facing more issues here than the value carriers and the network carriers, the legacy carriers, so to say. And Eurowings as a value carrier is offering opportunities here for customers to really feel comfortable. This is something that won't change, and I personally also expect the mask to be wearing at the aircraft will be something that we will see for a longer time as well. Yeah, we're trying to cope with the needs. We have to closely look into the needs, what the customers are actually requiring in this very specific period of time. It's not yet over, I would say.
It's not yet over, indeed. Nico, do you want to add anything to that? I know that I read somewhere that airline, the air circulating an aircraft is 20 times more pure than you would find in the middle of London, for example. I mean, is that? I mean, what's your perspective on things?
Yeah, the air is clean. That's for sure, and I think it has been proven that actually it is pretty safe to fly, which is positive for all of us. I would, to some extent, agree with Heikko, but when it comes to the masks, actually we have dropped the mandatory masks already on domestic and intra-Scandinavian routes. So we are going back into a more, if you may call it normal, pre-COVID environment. When we dropped the masks on intra-Scandinavian and domestic markets, we also actually dropped the boarding procedures. So we now offer normal priority boarding for our prioritized customers, not starting with the aft of the aircraft like on other routes. But then on international routes, European routes, long-haul routes, we still have mandatory masks and we still have different boarding procedures, and difficult to say how long it's going to last. But well, our opinion is that it's of course next in line after the intra-Scandinavian routes. So I think that even if it's, I agree, not over, we need to start to think about coming back to where we are coming from to larger extent. And we have been operating like this in the intra-Scandinavian markets, and we have to remember we are, I mean, large, long countries, so the routes are not necessarily super short, and it has actually been well received, and we have tried this now for almost a week, and it actually works very, very well. The other thing is, of course, the meal food service. We are already back. We offer on European flights and the shorter routes, we offer meal service already very close to what it used to be. What is going to change on longer term is that we are trying to move more into pre-order meals, especially in economy, or what we call SAS Go. So that's actually not that much connected to the pandemic. It's more connected to reducing food waste and increasing efficiency. But then in front of the plane in premium, there we have food offering just like we used to have. So I'm very positive. I mean, positive to see that we are moving and things are. The experience for the passengers is actually coming back to very close to what it used to be. And even on long-haul flights, in business class, we are at the moment as we speak, we are reintroducing full service in for example business, which is of course very highly appreciated by the customers traveling in premium or business cabins. So we are getting back.
Thank you, Nico. Mikko, I'm going to jump questions to you. You can answer that question if you want to, but I'm going to jump subjects and ask you another one related very much to what Nico just said there, because he mentioned the notion of pre-ordering meals in order to reduce waste, which brings us to the whole sort of thorny subject of sustainability. So I'm going to redirect the question to you a little bit on that, if you don't mind. And I think, in my opinion, the airlines tend to be the whipping boy of sustainability. They're the big bad boys that everyone can see polluting the atmosphere. Whereas in fact, as Nico highlighted, food waste is an issue, and there's a whole big picture out there. So do you want to take the question about sustainability, Nico? I mean, I know that's a big thing in the whole thin air strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, very correct. And I think that going forward, I think we as an industry, we all need to kind of look into ourselves and find ways on how we can be more sustainable going forward. I think that's what we as all kind of responsible people on the earth and in our corporate lives have to do. Just an example, my oldest kid is 16 years old, and he's talking to me about the environment 10 years down the road and what are different elements that are being done by companies. When I was 16, I was talking something completely different than that. But on a more serious note, what we are looking at, you have, I guess you have elements which require more investment. So you have technology, you have SAF, so sustainable aviation fuels. I think these are key when we look at the upcoming years. These do require investments, which means that also, for example, SAF or sustainable fuels, they are more expensive. How is this going to be funded? Is the customer going to be willing to pay for this? I think that's one side that comes also very much with profitability. Then you have another element, which are, for example, the weight of the aircraft, the services that you provide, how you optimize your flights. Then you have, such things as, European single skies, that how does, air traffic control actually plan you from Helsinki going into Barcelona, where it's not a kind of a unified way, where there's still a lot of, footprint that can be kind of saved if we had a true unified way of handling European flights. So I think there are, what you would call big ticket items, and then there are items that you can do in your everyday, planning, purchasing, implementing as an airline. For example, just before the COVID, we did a refurbishment of all of our ATRs. Part of this whole refurbishment was also looking at, for example, seat weight. How through the refurbishment process can we actually decrease the weight of an aircraft, meaning the CO2 footprint is also less than with the pre-ATRs. So I think it does come down to having sustainability as part of your internal dialogue with all decision making, and that's how we start taking the steps forward. And I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but it's something that you need to start discussing today. Intermodality is another one in regards to how is this done. And I think it's a topic that we're just starting to touch as an industry. This also then requires technical capabilities on how this is done booking wise, and kind of really taking deep into the core of how airlines or pretty much routes are booked. So intermodality is definitely also a topic that needs to come in. Then you have different approaches, regulation. That is it going to be a more an approach where incentivizing to become more sustainable as part of the process, or is it one where you're kind of, it comes as a cost burden, and you're kind of, you get penalties and taxed on it. So there's so many different angles that are happening, be it Europe, Asia, or US, and I think that we're in such a global environment. There has to be more alignment also going forward, that we're not playing by different rules as airlines. But I could go on longer on this topic, but I think these are a few of the kind of the elements that we're really looking at Finnair, and trying to really make that path, because I think one of the most important things is to also communicate this to the consumer, and communicate this to our other partners, so they're aware that, okay, hey, this is what Finnair is doing as an airline, looking at that sustainable development over the upcoming years, and there's the confidence there of purchasing Finnair as a choice when traveling.
Nico, do you want to add anything to that on the subject of sustainability?
Yeah, no, it's super good to hear that what Finnair is doing is also what we are doing, and there's not really too many options, because I think 95 or closer to 99% of the footprint from an airline normally is coming from burning fossil fuel. So to reduce that fuel burn is really the key. And there's a lot that you can do within your own environment by renewing the fleet and so on, and making them lighter and everything that was mentioned. And then there's a lot of things that we as an industry can do together also to drive also the sustainable aviation fuel that was mentioned. We don't have enough of the fuel available in the market, and we need to make sure that we push for more production, so that we are actually going to be able to use that kind of fuel, because that is actually the key with the sustainable aviation fuel, is that actually reduces the emissions. I mean, that's not offsetting. Offsetting is fine, but that's not the solution. That's something you can do on top when you have done everything else. You should never start with the offsetting. First, you have to reduce the fuel burn, and through the whole life cycle that you can do with the new aviation fuel, And to make sure that we push for the same agenda, I think is super important, and also involve both consumers, travel agents, corporate customers. We are all in this together. So that's really something that we need to figure out what we can do in our own environments and what we need to do as an industry.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the balance between, there's almost an equation which sustainability equals more expensive, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be sustainable means more efficient, and it means cheaper. I know that I was speaking to a vice president of American Airlines a few years ago, and he rang that they saved something like $2 million a year by not painting their aircraft because it just reduced the weight of it. We're now just it's stagnant amount. Heiko, just very quickly, and we're running out of time, but do you want to add anything to the sustainability argument?
Well, thank you. Yeah, lots of the initiatives have been mentioned, of course, and many of those are very important for the Lufthansa Group, especially when we look at intermodal cooperations with Deutsche Bahn in Germany, for example. I think we're very far. We did that in very early times already. We're further developing it, and also short routes like maybe Frankfurt, Cologne, are better served with the railway. So in this way, we're doing a lot as Lufthansa Group. I would like to add that the SAF receiver, the largest SAF receiver is Lufthansa Group in Europe. So we're also pushing this and absolutely supporting, as Mikko mentioned, this initiatives. We're doing even more with the PTL, power to liquid kerosene initiatives that started and kicked off in Germany, where we're actually pushing a climate project by Atmosphere, where we're the only or the first mover here in this perspective. So trying out different things as well to further develop the sustainability. As Eurowings, we're getting 14 A320s Neo and 321s. The first one is coming early next year. So we're doing the greatest rollover of the fleet of Eurowings in the history of Eurowings. When we look at the aircrafts that are in the air currently, we're doing a 20% rollover within just a short period of time, kicking off next quarter. And from that perspective, I'm supporting all the initiatives that Mikko and Nico mentioned here. Of course, it is crucial to avoid a picture that airlines would be kind of talking a lot and doing a little. It's really time to show action here, and we are totally with the competitors here into the same direction, of course. Yeah.
Well, I think that the one thing just on this subject before I hand over to Paul, I think the notion of sustainability as a subject is you can't be sustainable on your own. you have to work with everybody else, and I think collaboration and working together, even if it's with your most active competitor, collaborating and working together on initiatives is really the way forward. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, we're pretty much at our last question, so I'm going to sort of stick two questions in together, if I may, just to, if you don't mind, all answering just a couple of little things. And the first of all is very, very general question about how is the business traffic picking up, the business corporate traffic picking up for each one of you. And second of all, with what we've learned and with the pickup of business traffic, do you believe that the leisure segment, the leisure travelers, will be even more important in your planning and development in the future, especially after the COVID situation and many maybe corporate clients deciding to do some more online stuff than traveling as often as they used to? So what's the business traffic like, and is the leisure sector, where most of our guests are listening today, is it going to be even more of a focus for you guys in the future? Can I plump for Heiko? Maybe you can come first this time.
Right, thanks. Yeah, definitely corporate travelers are coming back. It's picking up. We're seeing a double of numbers since September and October, but of course on a low level. And that clearly comes with, I would say at the beginning of the pandemic, we were more critical when it comes to how much will business travelers come back. Even Carsten Spohr was stated once that he would see, on the midterm, even only 50%, 60% of the volume coming back. I think we're more looking into a 70, 80 now, but still, leisure travelers are totally in focus with Eurowings, of course. That's also why we When you look at the Prague pan-European base, it's very much leisure-driven, what we're doing there. A little bit less in Stockholm, obviously, because the business travel part is important there as well. But here, we definitely focus on the leisure traveler. We try to really work along the needs of the tour operators, especially, and I think we're doing well there. During the pandemic, we came closer, as I mentioned before, and we are developing this business in a joint manner because we clearly see that the importance, because of the shift from corporate travelers to leisure travelers, is rising massively. So yes, absolutely. And we see also more growth opportunities. Even before the pandemic, this was a strategic focus for the Lufthansa Group already. As you can see with Eurowings Discover, for example, being launched, the long-haul leisure airline of the Lufthansa Group. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks, Heike. Very, very comprehensive answer there. Nico, maybe you could answer that for SAS.
Yeah, to start with, both business and leisure purpose travel will be extremely important in the future for us. But coming from a situation where we had a split, like maybe 50-50, we do prepare for an environment where leisure travel is growing faster than business. So we see business coming back slowly. It has been there, but during the autumn, it's actually, I mean, it's very encouraging, steady growth, not any kind of rocket fast growth, but steady, slow, constant growth, not comparing to the average. The total demand is growing faster still. But we do, as an airline, prepare for a bigger share of leisure travel. Leisure will be more important than it used to be for us. That's quite obvious already now. And we do prepare our company to meet this challenge. We need to further be more efficient. We need to further cut even more cost to be able to compete with every single airline in the market for the leisure passengers. So to summarize, yes, I mean, both will be important. So we are not saying that it's going to be either or, but leisure is growing in importance in that mix.
Super, thanks, Nico. Very good. I appreciate that. I'm going to pass this one to Mikko, and then finally to Nicholas, maybe to summarize the whole thing at the end. Over to you, Mikko.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I agree with the previous comments that we do see corporate travel coming back. It is steady. It's not exploding. One I guess we're waiting for is that Europe to Asia corporate travel, and this is very much in link with the restrictions. And I believe when the restrictions do open up, then we do see the long haul corporate travel come back, and that's maybe one that we're waiting for. Also, business corporate travel as well as leisure, they've both been extremely important. I think they have slight different emphasis in different areas of the world where you look at the pockets where Finnair may be more competitive and have a wider reach to the leisure in certain markets than others. But overall focus is definitely on both. Overall, our network has a lot of leisure destinations in it, and if you look at what we've done towards the consumer. At the beginning of this year, we went to a complete one-way fare structure in domestic and intra-European travel, and through that and through the cost kind of cutting that we've tried to do, make sure that our cost structure is kind of healthy and healthier than it was pre-COVID. Through that, really tried to push the one-ways, so we do have really competitive fares, trying to get a wider reach in regards to segments and demand than with a return fare structure. So in that sense, I would say that we are very keen and looking very closely at the leisure segment, but of course we do want to be, offer the most to the corporates as both segments are important, as Nico also mentioned.
Absolutely, thanks, Mikko. Excellent. Nicholas, over to you. What are your sort of thoughts after all what you've heard from our wonderful panelists today?
I think I echo the sentiments of everyone here, where basically it's encouraging seeing business coming back, but leisure has grown a lot faster compared to business, and there seems to be, I guess, a movement towards a new kind of pattern where leisure is going to be the more of the dominant market rather than business. What I just want to add to that is, as to what Mikko said, it'd be quite interesting to see once the Asian market starts to open up to travel again, given perhaps differences in work behavior, whether there might be differences in behavior in terms of business versus leisure over there. at least over here, the experience is that a lot of things can be done remotely now and quite successfully. It'd be just interesting to see how this changes.
Absolutely, thank you very much. Great. Well, with incredibly that hours just whipped past. We've got such fabulous panelists today. I think we could probably stretch this to 3 hours, and it kept it equally interesting the whole way through. So a massive thank you to all our panelists today. Absolutely fantastic to get competitive airlines on the call together and talking very much in the same way, I think is fabulous. So we really appreciate all of your time here today. This webinar is part of a series we're doing on recovery, and our next one will be a little bit towards the National Tourist Offices around the recovery for 2022. Andy, over to you.
No, I've got nothing further to add. Just to thank you, to sincere and heartfelt thanks to Mikko, to Nicholas, to Heiko, and to Nico, Heiko, and Mikko. Great to have you all together. You're a bit of a mouthful, to be honest. I think it's been fantastic, and just to listen to you share your thoughts in a very honest way as well, which is super. And as I said earlier, I think that if COVID has taught us one thing over the last 2 years, it's that we all need to work together. We all need to cooperate, and it's only really by cooperating, working together, we'll eventually get there, and we'll actually see the recovery take the shape we all wanted to take. So I'd just like to thank everybody very much. Nicholas, thanks for the great insight. That's fantastic. Thanks to ETOA, and thanks to Tom hiding behind the scenes, who managed everything for us today. I hope to see you all face to face in person for a change. But thank you very much, and thanks everyone.
Thanks everybody. Recording's on its way. Bye bye everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.